Hey, it's Illuminostic, and today we're going to make a video about politics, which is a subject that I'm a little bit hesitant to broach. I know that, there's a lot of, it's a very sensitive subject, and I know that a lot of people are very committed to their ideas, and I'm really not trying to alienate anybody. But over the last few weeks, I have posted some things on Facebook, and from the reactions that I've been getting, I've kind of noticed that the level of indoctrination, the cognitive dissonance, the efficacy of the brainwashing in the United States, it really has reached a level that is a bit frightening if you're outside of that looking in. So I wanted to kind of offer my 2 cents and hope that, maybe I can help. Maybe somebody you can share this video with that will listen. Maybe they're still, believing in matrix politics and the two-party system, and they have faith in all that. And, maybe we can help them out, because it's definitely an illusion. And I can actually show you where to look to see that for yourself. I can kind of explain it well enough that I think that you might be able to see it for yourself. And I can actually offer, some solutions to at least get us on a track where we're headed towards, doing something about it. And it's a big problem, I mean, the powers that be are pretty firmly entrenched at this point. And removing them or making any kind of meaningful change very rapidly, which is what we're going to have to do. I mean, the ecological situation is much worse than you would gather from the media. They're kind of suppressing the Fukushima damage. The oceans are nearly dead. The rainforests, they're almost gone. It's not like they're just kind of disappearing. They're just about gone. And then there's a lot of social discord that could be resolved very easily if people were just taught, a little bit differently. Religion also is a major problem, and of course, long-term absolute solutions very difficult. But I do have some things to offer. So do me a favor and hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll get to it. Okay, so first of all, American democracy was never intended to be real. It was never really intended that people should elect a leader. It was always a pacifier, because if people realize the power of unity, if there were not two parties, this is the real purpose of the two-party system, to keep people divided, and they kind of figured out what was going on, there's a good chance that they would show up at the gates of the elite with pitchforks, and it would not be a good day for them. So they've done a lot to try to avoid the possibility that would happen. Fomenting racial tensions is another thing they do in the media. They definitely want to keep the lower classes divided more than anything. So, and as far as proof goes, you can look back. There's a book by the highest ranking living Freemason at the time. He was a general. He had political power. And one of the first things he says in the book is the will of the people is always wrong. And they talk about how they need to engineer their influence so that the energy of the people is made to, weave delicate lace, I think is the metaphor that he used. So basically, they are, for those of you that don't know, Freemasons are actually magicians. This is not a conspiracy theory. They practice magic. You can prove it to yourself. I mean, I was a Mason. I've been in the temples. We do rituals. It is not all evil. I know a lot of people say that it's all a bunch of black magic, and there's all these accusations of, satanic Illuminati cliques killing babies. And I'm not saying stuff like that doesn't ever happen. But for the most part, that's not what Freemasonry is about. And I don't want to diverge too much from the topic here. But they are practicing magicians. And it's not the kind of magic that you would think. It's about using the systems of natural law and integrating them with other models. And so, for example, the pyramid is the most stable structure. That's why we have, the working class is the broadest, and then we have the elite, the 1% up at the top. It's, a pyramidal structure. They try to structure economies this way. They structure governments. They structure everything along these geometric principles. They see managing populations in terms of energy, because that's really fundamentally what it is. So, and there's a lot of other things. I mean, you can look at the private writings of a lot of elite people over the years and get a pretty clear idea of how they see the people. And so, since Kennedy, and I want to mention, I'm going to put a link in the comments below to a speech that he gave 7 days before he was shot, where he actually talks about how there is a secret plan to subvert American democracy and to take away freedoms. And, you know, a lot of the things that he talked about in that speech have actually come to pass, the Patriot Act and, you know, a lot of that sort of stuff. So what I'm getting at here is that the political system is about manipulating the public. Donald Trump, let's think about it this way. If you're the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, you have tremendous power, you have a lot of money, you have access to debonair, you know, James Bond types all day long, Ivy League educated, sophisticated, brilliant, people that could unify the public. You know, they have access to all of the research at all of these, you know, Ivy League universities, think tanks. They know a tremendous amount about human psychology. You know, organizations like the CIA that have been doing research with psychedelics and everything else under the sun, they know a lot. And so manipulating the populace is a very, very simple thing. So we have a president like Donald Trump because they like for you to think that a lot of the things that they do that are destructive, that people would, it would insult their conscience. They want you to believe that it's actually bumbling idiocy. Donald Trump really doesn't have any power. Barack Obama didn't have a lot of power. These guys don't have a lot of power. They read scripts off of a teleprompter that is written by someone else. If they step too far out of line, they know they're going to die. Period. So, and you know, if you just look at the agenda that's been developing, how things have been moving along, it really hasn't changed as the office has changed, the office of the presidency has changed from red to blue. It is the same basic trajectory. And so one of the things that they will do is that they will use a guy like Barack Obama to foment a bunch of, you know, rage and hatred against the, you know, right, and make the right hate, you know, and then they use Trump to do the same thing with, you know, the liberals and the, I mean, he even went so far recently as to tell his people that the Democrats wanted to release dangerous drug addicts and rapists into their communities. So he's actually taken the stirring up, you know, foment with the bourgeoisie or whatever to that degree. And if it wasn't something that was, you know, that his handlers, his overseers didn't approve, there would have been some kind of, you know, public admonition or, you know, some kind of backlash, and there really wasn't. So, you know, it's gotten to that extent to where they've got one of their puppets actually trying to potentially instigate that degree of fear between, you know, the two wings of the bird. So, it's basically the main message that I'm trying to get across. They have a lot going for them in terms of the indoctrination and the propaganda, because they have cultivated a situation where people have a tremendous amount of pride in American democracy. Also, they use people's egos. People don't want to believe that they've been tricked. It makes them feel stupid. They don't want to admit that they were wrong. I think also that some of the realities of the modern existence are so terrible that a lot of people just really don't want to accept it or think about it. So there were a lot of motivations for people to keep their blinders on and not really look at this thing through, you know, objective eyes. A good example I'll give is, you know, a lot of people really believe that Barack Obama's this like wonderful, caring man, and, you know, that he would have upheld the Constitution, never done anything illegal. He, as a matter of record, this is not like conspiracy theory, you can look this up, he had 2 American citizens killed by drones without a trial. This is happening in the United States of America. Okay, so I'm not necessarily telling you not to vote, but I am telling you that when you're choosing between 2 puppets, out of all of the people in the United States, you have a choice of 2 people. And they are basically owned by the same people. Barack Obama called it middle management. You know, it's just, the whole thing is an illusion. So then the question becomes, I guess, well, what do we do about it? And that's where, you know, I'm going to get a little bit mystical, and you know, I hope that doesn't turn anybody off, but, you know, it's also scientific. Consciousness is connected. The consciousness of all people is connected. All energy is connected. If you don't know about the theory of entanglement, you could look that up. Also, the law of entrainment. If you think about entrainment and entanglement together, you can see how the energy that makes up our consciousness is connected and how it has influence over all of the other units of energy, really in the entire universe. So when you elevate yourself, when you free yourself from your programming, everything you do to evolve yourself spiritually, or you could think of it even as psychologically, emotionally, but that energy that makes up your being is going to have an impact on every other person. And I think that as corrupted and, as I said earlier, firmly entrenched these elites are that, or that are pushing their agendas, it's going to be very difficult to get them out. I think what we need to worry about more, focus on more, is our individual evolution of consciousness, because that is really where we're going to see the changes take place. If you can, even, talking to people, I've made some mistakes recently, because I'll get aggravated and I'll get kind of insulting and be like, man, you brainwashed idiots, how do you not see, And, you got to be careful about that, because we're all kind of ambassadors of a new world, a new way of thinking, a new type of consciousness. And calling it new isn't really accurate, but I think you know what I mean. As far as like a major constituent of mainstream America, it is definitely new. And I have noticed also that there are a lot more people waking up. There's a huge tide. And, I think fundamentally that needs to be our focus if you really want change. If it's going to make you feel better to go out and, vote federally, go ahead. But I can tell you this. One way to evaluate a politician is this. If they're talking big change, somebody like Bernie Sanders, you have to look at what they're saying, what their platform is, and say, okay, can the elite, can the powers that be use this to their benefit? Will it make them wealthier? Will it make them more powerful? Will it push the agenda forward? And if the answer is no, that politician that is talking is either lying or he's naive. And as long as Bernie Sanders has been in the political game, I don't think naivety is really the thing. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people have a lot of hope tied up in Bernie Sanders right now, but none of these guys are really going to make any substantial changes, and if they try, their efforts will be subverted and they might even be killed. That's just a fact. And, also, I want to mention there's a lot of people out there that will cite studies from all these big organizations when they're arguing about vaccines or this and that. I was just reading the other day about the egg industry has like a group that gets together and decides when they have a problem. And so somebody had found something out about eggs that, cholesterol. And so in order to try to suppress the study, they got a hold of a guy at Princeton that they were going to bribe to create a counter study. Now, in America, and probably anywhere else in the world, when something comes from an Ivy League university, you consider it reputable. You don't really question it. But we know for a fact that powerful, constituencies will lobby even over the table. But, covertly try to hire people, and usually successfully. This guy didn't say no. This professor didn't say no because it was dishonest. He said that he was a friend, it was a colleague, and he didn't want to create a study that went against this other person. So kind of what I'm getting at here is that if you really want to be effective, if you really want to be able to evaluate things, you need to let go of your ego. You need to be able to admit to yourself that you really know nothing. You need to learn to evaluate things objectively. Our belief in the voting system and the democratic system in America is totally irrational, because we've gone red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, and things have not really changed that much. Nobody has really done anything that has, revolutionized society and stopped the destruction of the environment, or, gotten rid of racism. And the thing is, the answers, once you screw around with enlightenment and consciousness a little bit, you realize that there are things that could be telling people that, they don't, that would really help. There are actions that could be taken. They do not know that, and you have to ask yourself the question, why? So, I'm not really telling you who to vote for, and I'm not really offering, an absolute resolution to all of this. But I am telling you that if you really want to be of service to yourself and to your fellow countrymen, the first thing you have to do is be willing to deprogram your mind, to look for your own cognitive dissonance, to be willing to counter an idea with the opposite idea and actually entertain whatever you come up with in the middle. So that's the best solution that I can offer. Also, I think something I missed, one of the reasons they swing red to blue is so that if things are done that are not consistent with the agenda, the guy that comes along next can just undo it. That's happening with Trump, and it'll happen with the guy after him if Trump does anything they don't like. You guys just really have to look at the bigger picture here, and you have to be willing to let go of your ideas about things and to, take a fresh look at the world and really embrace the evolution of consciousness. as the resolution to a lot of these conflicts and problems that are so perennial in our society.